Good afternoon. Can anyone hear me?
Hi, Counselor. We can hear you.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Ed Flynn.
Hey, everyone, this is Counselor Campbell. We'll get started in about 4 minutes or so. Thank you. Hey, everyone. Michelle, Kerry, you guys all set?
Hi, Counselor. It's Candace today.
Oh, hi, Candace.
How are you?
I'm doing well. You guys all set?
Yes, we're ready to go, recording and streaming live.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for being here. All right. So I'll get started now. For the record, my name is Andrea Campbell. I'm the District 4 City Councilor. I'm also the chair of the Boston City Council's Committee on Public Safety and Criminal Justice. This public hearing is being recorded and live streamed at boston.gov/citycounciltv. It will rebroadcast on Comcast Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, Verizon Channel 1964. We will take public testimony at the end of this hearing. If everyone can mute, that would be great. Thank you. We will take public testimony at the end of this hearing. So if you wish to testify, please email michelle.a.goldberg@boston.gov. Or Candace, are we doing your email instead?
Either or
No,
is
Counselor,
fine.
I'm here.
Okay, you guys are the best. Thank you. You may also submit written testimony by emailing ccc.ps@boston.gov. Today's hearing is on 4 different dockets. The first is docket number 0803. The constable's bonds of the following have been duly approved by the collector treasurer and were received. And these are for various names, which I will read quickly into the record. Ruth Baez, Paul Barlett, Leonard Brown, Christopher Costagan, Gavin Costagan, Rafalin Kazoo, Frico Damas, Mark Evligiadis, Kimberly Freeman Hodge, Colin Harrell, Carl Jean Lewis, Michael Jones, Stephen Jones, Anthony Keller, Arlene Lee, Daniel Long, Verinda Malden, Burton Malfkowski, Paul Morelli, Jonas Morose, Matthew Morrison, Slims Petit Maitre, Fillmore Phillip, William Rock, Rosaline Torres, Wesley Williams, and Stephen Wilson Jr. And I apologize for mispronouncing anyone's name. The second docket is docket number 0818, the constable's bonds of Petit Maitre Duncans, Michael James, Vincent James, which has been duly approved by the collector treasurer, were received. The third is docket 0836, the constable's bonds of Ron Cobb, Helen Borgella, Mika Brown, William Joyce, which is actually here twice, Norman Lowe, Arthur Montgomery, and Anselm Nenko, having been duly approved by the collector treasurer, were received. And the last is docket 0858, message and order authorizing the city of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $3,828,317 in the form of a grant for the FY21 Public Safety Answering Point Service Support and Incentive Grant awarded by the Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety and Security to be administered by the Police Department, and it will fund costs associated with providing enhanced 911 services. And we have several speakers today for these 4 dockets. And before I go to them, I want to quickly just let everyone know we've been joined by several council colleagues, including Councilor Ed Flynn, Councilor Nisa Sabi George, Councilor Kim Janey, Council President Kim Janey, Councilor Flaherty, and I think that's it for right now. But at this point, I want to turn it over to the administration. I'm not sure who wants to testify with respect to each docket. So if you could let me know, then we can start with you. Okay. So Neil, can you hear? You're on mute. Let's get you unmuted.
Yes. My name is Neil Janowitz. I'm Assistant Corporation Counsel for Inspectional Services. I'm one of the attorneys at Inspectional Services. And I was asked to be available today to answer questions about our housing inspectors are constables. I'm not sure if that's what these dockets are about, but just generally speaking, our housing inspectors are also constables, and they serve our sanitary code and building code violations, because under both codes, a person who is responsible for serving process.
So Neil, for the record, I will have you go, and then I'll turn it over to others who will testify on those dockets. But go ahead,
Yes,
please
so
explain the process, which most
The process for our division is those inspectors are also constables. They serve the violations. They provide a great service because if we're able to get service quickly on the right person with people who know how to provide service, violations tend to get corrected much more quickly. I'll just sit available for anybody who has any questions that wants more information about the process, but at a high level, that's what our housing inspectors do with their constable appointments.
Thank you, that's helpful. Is someone here from the police department? I'm not seeing everyone listed here, unfortunately, on my screen.
One second.
Oh, hi, Deputy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. We can't see you, though. Are you, I think there was an echo there.
How's that?
Much better. Are you here to testify by chance on just the process generally for constables and this docket, or are you here for another docket?
I'm here for the PSAP docket.
Okay. So Candace or Michelle, who's here specifically for the constable's docket besides Neil?
Hi, Counselor. This is Michelle. I think Neil Doherty may also be on the call, so he can, or he was, can clarify. Neil from ISD was the person who was here to testify about those 3 constable dockets in general. So I think maybe just, Neil, if you can speak more to the process about their applications, if you know something about that, and then you know, how the bonds go through the clerk's office and that process. Thanks.
Sure. So there's a city ordinance, this goes beyond our housing inspector constables. There's a city ordinance that any constable who's going to be appointed to serve civil process has to provide a bond, and they provide that bond to the city clerks, and they can't be appointed until they've provided the bond and it's been accepted. And that's what it indicates, that the dockets indicate that's what's happened, that bonds for these individuals who've applied to be constables have been received. And it's a statutory requirement that's also codified in the City of Boston ordinances. It's 272. There's a $5,000 bond is required in order for the appointment to go through.
So Neil, what would be helpful is there are a lot of folks, so normally we don't actually hold a hearing for constables because of the
Yes.
rigorous process that has to happen even before the council.
Right.
But since we are, there's a lot of folks who don't understand the process from beginning to end, the application process. So if you could, for my colleagues as well as just the public, go through that process in probably a little bit more detail, that would be
Sure.
fantastic.
Sure. And this
then
is a little bit
specifically-
beyond what I deal with on a day-to-day, but I did do some research on the constable process for this hearing. And it's
Thank you.
somebody would request a application from the police department. My understanding is they only accept applications at the beginning of the year. They don't accept them after February 15th. At that point in time, they conduct a background check. The application is pretty thorough. The individuals need to provide at least 5 people to stand up for their character, one of which needs to be an attorney at law according to the requirements. And they filed that. My understanding is that the police department would then conduct a background check. Once that background check is cleared, the person would be notified that process is complete, and they would then be responsible for obtaining the surety bond, which is where we seem to be at this point in time. So I don't have much detail on what the background check involved, but it's an application through the police department at the beginning of the year, and then I assume from February 15th, when that deadline is, until now, the police are doing their background check. It is a fairly rigorous process. The constables can't have certain criminal records by statute. So I assume the police are looking into that. And just checking on all the other qualifications. I've dealt with the filling out of the applications for our constables. Several of them who I've known, that I tend to be one of the people who sign off because an attorney does need to sign off, and I do that on behalf of the constables I've known and worked with here for the last few years. And that's for our constables, and then anybody who wants to be a constable needs to go through the same process and find people who are familiar with them and willing to vouch for them in that application process.
Thank you, Neil. I appreciate it. Thank you. At this time, before I move on, actually, you know what? I'm going to move on to the next docket, and then I'll take questions from my colleagues. So if we could go to the fourth docket, which was the grant. Deputy, you're here to speak to that specifically. That would be great. We can see
Okay,
you. Perfect.
can you hear me? Okay,
Yes,
thanks.
thank you.
How are
Good
you?
to see you.
I'm here with Chris Markounis, who is also going to testify on behalf of this grant. Chris, you on?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Chris Markounis, Director of Quality Assurance for the Boston Police Operations Division.
Thank you, Chris. I'll let you guys decide who will go first, and you can go right ahead.
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll go. Mute there. We're socially distanced in the office here. Okay, so this is an annual formula grant for the 911 public safety answering point for the city of Boston here at Boston Police Headquarters. It's awarded by the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security through the state 911 department. This year, we did see an increase in that grant. The state was gracious enough to increase the grant allotment for the city of Boston by $500,000, $500,000. So the total amount this year is $3,828,317. This grant goes to help defray the cost for providing enhanced 911 service for the city. It helps provide salary reimbursements for employees here in the 911 Operations Center. We also use the grant to provide equipment, cleaning, and other contractual services to maintain the center here at Boston Police Headquarters, as well as Boston Fire Alarm and the 911 Center at Boston Emergency Medical Services as well. Yep, can you hear us?
I can.
Okay.
Sorry, there are moments, it's like I have a delay or something on my end, so my apologies.
I get it.
Anything else you want to add,
Um,
or Deputy?
Deputy,
Then I'm going to
everyone?
turn it over to my colleagues for questions on all four dockets.
No, that's it.
Okay,
Chris covered it all.
thank you. And so in order of arrival, I'll just say for the record, so folks know, we had Councilor Flynn, Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Sabi George, Councilor Janey. So I'm going to start with Councilor Flynn.
Thank you, Councilor Campbell. Thank you for your leadership on these important issues, and thank you, administration, staff that is here. As it relates to 911, I know that's a lot of funding, and I think that's a great opportunity for the city. Can you dig deeper into that? What specifically that funds will be used for training? And I'm also looking at training if for language access related issues when people that might not speak English call 911. Can you explain that process and how we train and recruit non-English speaking potential personnel as well?
Sure, Counselor, I can answer that. Chris Markounis. So the grant itself is broken down 3 ways between Boston Police, Boston Fire, and Boston EMS for each emergency communication center. We then, at the police department, the training is separate. We receive a separate grant from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security for training on 911 call takers and dispatchers. This is a grant for support of the PSTEP. So this helps support salaries, and it also helps support the maintenance to our computer-aided dispatch system, which is the CAD system. That's the main, it's basically the crux of the emergency communications system for the city of Boston. 911 call taker takes the incoming 911 call from the citizen, enters the information into the CAD, which transmits it over to the dispatcher and then the field units in the street as well. So there's a significant cost in running and maintaining that system. We also use it to provide a deep cleaning of the 24-hour operations center here at police headquarters. And I know Boston EMS does the same as well. We also have maintenance contracts for the radio system for the police department and the MDT system that is in the police cruisers, the officers use out in the fields. Those maintenance contracts are also absorbed by this grant. As far as the language access goes, presently we have the state provides for each city and town in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They provide language interpretation services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to our 911 operators and call takers. We also have a fairly substantial staff here that speaks more than one language. And we're always looking to recruit more.
Thank you, Chris. That information was helpful. And my final question for you or for your team is if there is an emergency and the police commissioner would need to speak to the fire commissioner or the EMS chief, are we able to do that through the radio system? Do we have specific channels that would allow EMS, Boston Fire, Boston Police to effectively communicate with each other during in an emergency?
Yes, yeah, there is interoperability amongst those radio systems. So in a large sustained event or something where we were coordinating efforts, there is a common channel where they would be able to set up and cross communicate.
Thank you, Chris. I don't have any further questions. I'm looking forward to supporting this docket. I also know fire alarm plays a critical role in our city as well. I'm proud of the workers at Fire Alarm and for their dedication to our city. But again, I'm looking forward to supporting this docket. Thank you, Councilor Campbell.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Councilor Flaherty?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to go on record of supporting these 4 dockets. Obviously, they play a very important and critical role of public safety and also civil process. Speaking and for my colleagues' edification, I think the person who knows the most about the sort of inner workings of our constables, it's our clerk, Clerk Maureen Feeney, former counselor who did yeoman's work when she served as chair of government operations. And the constables were obviously cooperative with our police commissioner years ago when there was a little bit of a loophole and a glitch where folks were reappointed or recommissioned, if you will, who should not have been. And then, things sort of rolled out in the newspaper. So kudos to the police department for getting involved and meeting the council. And we've put some very specific and strict guidelines in to make sure that those situations don't happen again. So I know that the council played a very important role led by a former colleague and our clerk with the Constables Union and Association, as well as the police department. So if any of our colleagues are on here that sort of want to know a little bit more about the inner workings of that, feel free to reach out to Clerk Feeney. She knows it like the back of her hand. And obviously the work that our constables do, they provide an essential and pivotal service, not just for us here in the city of Boston, whether it's through ISD or our police department, fire department, but also the Boston Housing Authority and our courts for the execution of courts and for civil process and service. They're essential. So I know that these have been hanging around for a little while. Glad to finally see that they're moving so that these individuals can be recommissioned and or continue their businesses. A lot of them have very good businesses that I think they've been waiting for this commission. And then, as all my colleagues know, I've been talking about 911 all summer long. So the fact that this grant will give them a shot in the arm, they do tremendous work. The calls come in nonstop throughout all of our cities, through all of our neighborhoods, but in particular, sort of B2, B3, C11. There's a significant and higher volume of calls, and listening to the radio, particularly some nights and weekends, it's hard to believe that the way that they handle themselves, they're extremely professional, dealing with fast moving and some hectic situations, and they do it with the calmness, with the person that they're dealing with on the phone at the same time as they're relaying that vital and important critical information to our first responders. So my hat is always off to our 911 operators in the call centers and the turret, because they do great work, often behind the scenes, and doesn't necessarily get recognized, but they're a vital component for our city. So happy to support these grants that will allow them to continue to do the great work that they do on behalf of the residents, the taxpayers of Boston. And with that, I'll stand by to listen if anyone has any additional questions. But thank you, Madam Chair, for convening this hearing. Look forward to voting in the affirmative at the appropriate time when you issue a committee report before the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Sabi George?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief. Thank you to our guests here today. On the grants in particular, are those repeat grants? Is that funds that we've received in the past? Are those funds?
Yes, for the, hello, Councilor, for the 911 grants, yes, they are it's an annual formula grant. It's allotted to the city, actually every city and town in the Commonwealth that maintains a 911 public safety answering point is allotted a certain amount of money through the Commonwealth's 911 program each and every fiscal year.
Great, thank you. And then anything special about, this question's for Neil. Any special sort of notes to make on these bonds here with the constables?
No, nothing particular with these.
Just sort of run of the mill process?
Run of the mill, they're required, and as Councilor Flaherty indicated, the names could be people with their own businesses who are serving civil process. And in order to do so, they need these bonds, which we're not paying. It's not money out of the city's pocket. It's bonds that they've submitted to us.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any other additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sabi George. Council President Janey?
Thank you so much. Just a few quick follow-up questions. This has been quite informative and helpful. So thank you to the panelists. Are all of these grants to fund positions?
No, good afternoon, Councilor.
I mean, to support people, not
no,
necessarily fund positions, because I understand that the constables are not employees.
So on the 911 grant, the funding defrays the cost, but doesn't fully pay for the cost of all the employees in the 911 center.
Okay.
So it does help with defray the cost for the city.
Right. And then with the constables, these are the bonds that they are submitting. This is not, as you just answered Councilor Sabi George's question, city money.
Correct.
In terms of the people that the money is supporting, do you, just to follow up on Councilor Flynn's question, do you know the diversity of the folks in that call center or of the constables in terms of ethnicity and language?
In the 911 call center, the diversity is fairly significant. I'm proud to say we have a very diverse call center staff here. I can get you an exact breakdown if you'd like.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. And any sense on the constables, do we know? I'm sorry, Neil, I can't. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. I don't know the breakdown. I'm not sure. They could be. It's private, and it could be private individuals. It could be people in other departments. I didn't recognize the name of anybody from ISD. But these are bonds that anybody who wants to be a constable has to go through this process.
They would go through the process, yeah. And these are all for civil kinds of issues.
Yes, civil process.
No criminal, right? So all civil.
Civil process.
Okay. And within our system, how many do we have? So you mentioned ISD.
Yes, all of our housing inspectors in our housing division are constables. How many there are, I don't have that number off the top of my head. But every inspector in our housing division is a constable and is able to serve civil process. And for us here, that means part of that is serving the sanitary code violations and the building code violations, because those two codes do require somebody authorized by law to serve process.
And doesn't one of doesn't some of this live in public works in terms of code violations?
Different code. Public Works does code enforcement. That's the trash tickets.
And so that would never be constables
different.
getting involved in any of this?
No,
Okay.
that's a completely different process. This is violations related to the sanitary code violations are typically related to rental units. Building code could be anything.
Right. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you again to the panel.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, I'll see if there's any public testimony. Michelle, do we have any public testimony?
No one has signed up for public testimony, Council.
Okay, and I don't think we have any more colleagues on from Accurate. I don't see any more. Okay. Neil, Chris, or Deputy, do you guys have anything else you want to add before I wrap up?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
And if I do get any follow-up questions from colleagues who couldn't join, I'll just send those through central staff, but I really appreciate you guys taking the time today. So thank you so much. Thank you for the work you're doing. Stay safe and healthy. And Candace and Michelle, thank you as well. And of course, thank you to my colleagues.
Thank you as well.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you. And at this time, this hearing is adjourned. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Have a good
Thank
afternoon.
you.